Okay, gents, what we're going to do now is we're going to go through creating a GUI with a number of different components. Now, before you start any GUI, you must make sure that you understand how you're going to lay it out. And as we've talked about previously, we're going to do the column and row method, okay? Now, you can see that in my GUI here for a new customer, my label is going to span 4 columns. Now it's really important to understand that columns begin at column 0 and then work its way across. Then you can see once it's spanning across 4 columns, you can then, all you simply do then is you just pick out where you want your components to lie. Similarly with rows start at row 0 and they just work their way down. So if you can imagine it again, just the way you're laying out your GUI, you start on the top row, the second row, the third row, the fourth row, etc., etc. But just remember they're numbered rows 0 and then beyond. So what we're going to do now is we're going to have a look at the code behind that, and hopefully you'll be able to produce your own GUIs from this. So this is the GUI that I want you to be able to create. Really important to understand when you're creating a GUI, you have to recognize how many pieces of data you're going to take out or take away or get from that GUI. So you can see I've got 1, 2. Now it's really important when you're doing radio buttons to understand that they are linked to the same variable. So I've got 1, 2, this is 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9. Okay. Now every list or drop down box will have its own associated variable as well. Now the first thing that you should do is basically list out your variables that you're going to be able to get. Now you can see there, okay, that all of the variables are string var bar the radio buttons, which will be put into an int var variable. Okay, so give them proper variable names, associate with them then with the string var. Now, what we're going to have a look at is we're going to have a look at the code for all of this. Okay, so hopefully you can look at my code and you can see the different rows and then the components of those rows and how it's made up. So the first one is a label, and it's the label new customer. Okay, now I put it into a frame called root. You will not be putting it into a frame called root. You will be putting into a frame called add customer, okay, because you're going to have more than one frame in your GUI. You're going to give it text, you're going to give it a font, and then you're going to grid it. So I'm putting into row 0, column 0, and then the key thing here is I do a column span of 4. So it's going across 1 column, 2 columns, 3 columns, and then 4 columns. And it's actually, when you do a column span, it puts it right in the middle of those 4 columns. Okay, it really centers it. Okay. Pad X and pad Y, I just always go with 20 and 10. They just give me that little bit of space in between my components. Now, moving on to row 1. So row 1, I've got a label and an entry box. Okay, so my label is the exact same. Frame, text, font, and where I want to put it. Now I'm putting it into row 1, column 1, which means I get to skip past column 0, so that stays blank, and I put it into column 1. Okay, next thing I do is my entry box. Now the entry box is really important. So obviously we call it entry, we name the frame that we're going to put it into, and then you associate a variable name. So again, you go back to your variables that you've set up, and you just link them together. Now the only other thing I've done there is a width. I've done width of 10. Now width of 10 basically is the width of the entry box. Okay. Now you can make them smaller, like I've done with this list, or you can make them wider. Generally 10 is a nice kind of number to go at. And again, you can see I put that in row 1 and in column 2. So it goes into row 1 and it goes beyond column 0, beyond column 1, it goes into column 2. Going into row 2, okay, I've got another label, last name, yeah, and then I've got another entry box. So that's how I create my labels, my entry boxes, and make sure that you link your entry boxes to the variables that you've set up previously. Okay, now I'm going to go on to my radio buttons. Okay, so my radio buttons are very, very simple to set up. Okay, so I do my label. Okay, I put it into row 3, as you can see here. Okay, in column 0, so it's on the left hand side there. Yeah. Now the way I set up my radio buttons, I put the radio buttons next to each other. Now, how does a radio button work? So we have radio button, we name the frame that we're going to put it into, we give it text, and then we give it a variable, and we know that it's an int var variable. So, and then because it's an int var variable, you must give it a value. You must give that variable a value, and we say value equals 1 for male, and then value equals 2 for female. You can see again, I set the font, I set the font size, and then I put it to bold. And you can see there now, I'm using different columns here. So I'm putting the first one into row 3, yeah? So that's row 0, row 1, row 2, row 3, and I'm putting into column 1. As you can see there, I'm putting the next one into column 2. Okay, now, moving on here. So now I'm going to be introducing another component. The next component I'm going to be introducing is going to be the drop-down list. Okay, so let's talk about this one. So we've got a label first. Should be pretty straightforward. It's in row 4, column 0. Okay, then I've got an entry box. Okay, so what I do with my entry box there is I set it up, I name the frame, name the variable, okay, which I set up above, give it a width, and put it into row 4, column 1. Now, with my drop-down list, okay, so I create a list, okay, and basically I put the elements of my list into a thing called an array, okay. Then I create it's called an option menu, okay, so I just give it a little variable name. I'd say where I'm going to put it, yeah, that's the frame that I'm going to put it, yeah, and now this is the variable that I've associated with it. Yeah, so email address, yeah, is a string var, yeah, so that's the variable I associated, and I just do all of list 1. So star means put everything in from list 1. Then I configure it by giving it a width, okay, so you can see it's a width of 15, and you can see the width of 15 is wider than the width of 10 for the entry boxes. And then what I do then is I set what I want to see first in it. So I've just clicked on it. So that should just say Hotmail, like that. Then I put it into row 4 and then column 2. Okay, then what I do is I'm going to create another 3 lists. So this is now all going to go into row 5. We have my label, okay, and this time I've got 3 option menus, okay. So list 2 is going to contain 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, as you can see there. Yeah. Again, I put it into a frame. I give it the variable name, which I've outlined above. So day is outlined above as a string var. And I say put in everything associated with list 2. I configure it to 5, so you can see now that it's narrower than the previous list. Okay. And then I set the value of it to 1. So when I initially run it, it'll always be on 1. And that's the same for the other 2. Okay, so again, you've got list 3, yeah, associated with the variable month, put in everything from list 3, change the width of it, set it to January, place it into the grid. Similarly with list 4, etc., etc. Again, should be no issue with row 6. Row 6 is just a simple label, yeah, okay, and then it's just an entry box, okay. Then I've got my submit button, my back button, my clear button, and my help button, yeah. They're all in row 7, and you can see they're in column 0, column 1, column 2, and column 3. Column 0, column 1, column 2, and column 3. Okay. Now, the code that I'm most interested is in the code store. Okay, so we know with the store button, I've called it submit button. I've put it into the frame. I've given it the text called store, and I've given it a command. Okay, and the command that I've given it is store member. Okay, now you can see that I've given it a background and a foreground. In my version of Python on my laptop, it doesn't recognize the colors. Don't worry, it will in the school one. So the most important thing is now, okay, so the command equals store member. Okay, so let's go through the component, the code for writing to the file. Okay, so I go up to store member and I create a function for store member. Now, first thing that I do is for all of the variables, the 9 variables, okay, I create another variable and I do a dot get. Okay, so first name here, surname here, email, which is the entry box email, and then email address, which is the list. Okay, I get them. And what I'm doing is I'm creating a full email address. So if that says AOB in here, when I click on store, it's just going to join AOB and whatever it sees in here. So it would create aob@gmail.com. Similarly with the birthday, I have a day, a month, and a year. Okay, and I get all of them and place them into the new variable. And then I create another variable called date of birth, and I just add them together. So if I select 2 March and then 2015, what I'll do is I'll then add them all together and place a dot between them. So it will have 2.March.2015. Okay. Now the last one. Okay, so the last one then is the gender choice, which is obviously the radio buttons. So again, I create my new variable like I do. I just do gender choice dot get. Now that gender choice variable will contain a 1 or a 2. Okay, lastly, the mobile, gets whatever's been entered into the mobile entry box. And then what I do is I create another variable called full mobile, which is 44 plus whatever is in there. So if I do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, it will just join 4, 4 together, 4, 4, and it'll be 4, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Okay, now you shouldn't do this first. We should just get writing first, but you can do some error messaging. So the way I've done it is, if the first thing I've checked on is when I click on store, I'm going to check that there are anything that I can enter. So the first name, the last name, the email, and the mobile number. I just check if they're blank. Okay, so if any of them are blank, I just do a little error message saying that there was some error with the information, and all I simply do is set them all to blank. So I'm penalizing the person. So the person, if they've missed out on something, I say we cancel everything and then they start it over again. What I then say is, if the gender choice hasn't been chosen, if the gender choice has not been chosen, again, it comes up with an error saying that they've got to select a gender. The next one is I then look at the mobile phone number. So every mobile phone number has to be 12 characters long. Okay, so what I then do is I use this thing called len. So len full mobile will tell me how many characters are in this variable called full mobile. And if it's not 12, it'll print an error saying the mobile phone number is incorrect. Okay? Now, what I then do, is, and this is in my one, I then ask the question is, I said, you're about to submit the following details. So what that is there, it's just a little message saying, are you sure that you want to delete those? Are you sure that you want to enter those? Okay, it's a yes or no message box. So when you click on yes, this variable yes will take the value of yes. Okay. Now, if I'm happy with all of those details, so I say if result equals yes, then I open up the txt file that's going to contain all the customer details, and I set it with append. And I simply open up this, I create this variable called writer, and what I simply do is I write the row using all the variables that I want to put in there. Okay, then I close the CSV file. Okay. If I select no from this message box, all it's simply going to do is going to set everything to blank again. So let me just run through this. So if I say A. O'Brien, if I say mail, if I have A. O'Brien, and I've got 3 April 2017, and I put in something like and if I click on store, there was an issue with some of the information because I hadn't put in a last name, so I'll just blank it all out. So now I'm going to pull in a full record. I'm going to select mail. I'm going to say AOB, Hotmail, 5th May 15. Click store. Okay, the message comes up. Right, do you want to enter in this details? If I click no, it's going to do all the blanking. If I click yes, it writes all the details. Okay, and then if I go into my customer txt file, you will see all the details I entered were in there. So you need to take your time, go through the video very, very carefully. If you go through it very carefully, follow the code inside there, you'll have created a successful GUI. Good luck.